So there he is. What's up, brother?
I tried joining a second ago and it waited like 2 minutes and then it said you can't join, host didn't accept it or whatever. I'm like, I don't know what's going on. It must be lagging or something.
I don't think I was live yet. I just went like 30 seconds ago, probably.
All right, for sure. So we should be good to go, but some people, someone's going to be working. So if it gets noisy with like stuff in the background, like saws and stuff, we might have to call it and redo it. But it's the Matrix. But we should be good. I don't think so, but I don't know. I can't guarantee it will be quiet here. It might be background noise, is what I'm saying.
Oh, that's all good, man. All up to you. But
All right. I'm doing good. How are you?
yeah, I'm doing good. It's cool that our videos kind of like synced up in a sense in the way that they did. So I'm glad that we decided to talk about it. If you guys haven't seen so on Infinite's channel, like there was a video that is very, very good at explaining something that we both have independently come to as far as like how we feel within this place. If I'm not mistaken, it's his most recent video. You should go check it out. It's very, very concise and to the point, and very, very philosophically. The diagram was sick.
For sure.
It kept it on point for sure. But like, do you want to talk a little bit about like the main like ideas that you floated in that one?
Sure. Yeah, I'll mention it. So for a while, I've been bouncing around some ideas in my head about how I could incorporate the different experiences I've had, like the so-called what people say as astrals, or they'll say etheric, and it's like I don't really know where that is, but it's not here when I'm there. And then another thing that's been happening for a couple, at least years now, is manipulations apparently when I'm in those places by some kind of intelligence, and so I've been thinking of how to order it, and I started writing it down. I needed like something to look at in front of me. So I started drawing like, okay, if physical is the lowest level, then it came out to be that we're in a simulation within a simulation. Now I don't know that that's accurate. I'm not claiming that that model is how it is, but it's an idea to run with because some people have rightfully so said that it could be more accurate to label this whole matrix, including those so-called astral places in the other levels, as something like a Russian nesting doll. So in that model, maybe you would have like a circular physical in the middle, then astral and etheric, then real reality or something like that. But hello. But so I don't really know, I don't know, but the idea was that on some level there's outside of the matrix, outside of this level and whatever else there's an outside level above or outside or whatever you want to say, where hey, stop, will you call the dogs? I'm trying to do something right now. Go see. That's all right. There could be a real layer in this model where there's like a more fundamental reality, and I was thinking a real body, maybe in a pod or maybe dreaming this, but I don't know. I just had to draw it out so I could see what I was looking at and then get the labels on and have a rough concept of a map or something, some kind of thing to point to, and then adjust as you go, like, oh, this experience made me okay, and then just based on experience, it was the stuff about like the dream manipulation. In my experience, it does seem that somewhere between here and a higher place is what they call the astrals, where my dream body has been getting manipulated by apparently either beings or technology. And I'm not the only one that says that. I've heard this quite a bit in the past few years. I've talked to people that have been experiencing this, and it's not nice. And I don't know what level it's on. It could just be remote neuromonitoring or whatever, or I don't know, man. But so did that kind of cover it?
Yeah, no, and the thing about it is, like, as much as some of these things that we talk about and discuss can sound very like, out of left field or hard to consider or believe or even fathom. Much of it, at the very least, and it's not to say that you should trust agencies or anything like that just because they have that authority, so-called authority, but like, for instance, what you just talked about with specific manipulation of I'll say energy, in a literal sense. That's something that's very well documented. I have a couple of documentation videos on my channel, like as you know, but then also I'm not sure if it was the Y Files or another independent channel that talked about the declassified um, documents that talk about manipulation. First, they started with, I believe it was dogs to make them go in certain directions in certain areas by electrical impulses or electrical frequencies being
Right.
generated. But later in that same declassified document, at the very end, it talks about how the future plan, and this is like the 70s, I believe, the future plan is to try to scale this up to use in humans. And that was
Yeah.
60 plus years ago.
Yeah, I was
Um,
gonna say that'd be a couple decades ago, probably back in like the 30s and 40s, even when it began. I bet it was that far back, probably quite a ways back. Yeah.
Likely, yeah. So I mean, it's not far fetched even a little bit, and that kind of goes into what when I watched your video, it there was a correlation that I felt based off of the concept of, you said something specific. You said it's up to each one of us, specifically ourselves, to essentially find our way out.
Right.
And
Theoretically,
the,
yeah, I think it would be. That feels
the
right, and I mean, I've never had anyone just give me a red pill. Like, if that exists, I'll have to find it myself, unless Morpheus is real. But I don't. I haven't seen that evidence.
Well, even more specifically, when you talked about the difference between non-duality and oneness, and this
Right.
thing that has been getting kind of perpetuated and pushed to the forefront of these circles that we kind of find ourselves in, where everyone says that we are all one being. Essentially, we're all just one part of one being. um, you said you don't feel that. I personally don't feel that either. Sovereignty is something that's very, very important to me. And so when you talked about that, I made the link between those two things, where it almost seems like yet another form of manipulation, where if everyone
Yep.
believes that they're a part of the same being, one being, then it's much easier to create groupthink and keep people from understanding I am a sovereign being that has to figure this out for myself. I have to empower myself. I have to, work with others, but that doesn't mean worshiping or bowing to or, indiscriminately obeying other beings specifically. It just,
Right.
yeah, the stuff you were saying definitely made that connection.
Yeah. One of the other ideas I was trying to convey. I don't know if I clarified it, but maybe I did. But um, the other concept was that because like you're saying, some people, like I know I'm sovereign. Maybe if I can claim I'm sovereign and feel it, but then there's like authorities here, the false authorities. So yeah, how sovereign are we really? I mean, more or less it's there, but things can happen, right? But there is not, in my opinion, not part of a oneness. I'm sovereign. I don't want to be, I don't want to lose my sovereignty. That's like super important. That is the thing that makes me different than everybody else. But there probably is a large group of beings here that are humanoid that are part of a board. And I don't know if it's because mind control or something, but I kind of linked the soul beings from the so-called middle or the astral and the physical. I linked those together, and I said the AI that's creating this place kind of projects them and creates those beings. I don't know that. It just seems logically like it would. And they would be ran by the AI or something, some kind of intelligence, but they're not. They may think that they're individual, but they don't care about sovereignty the way that some people do. They would not make it so important, and it would be hard to distinguish. Um, maybe. But yeah, I don't know. So there could be a hive mind. And it seems like
Yeah,
there is. All the
the
one they
thing
speak
that
of.
is interesting to me is that so two things. Someone in the chat just said kind of the way that I view it, possibly too. I really struggled with the idea too, and I kind of think we're not all from the same sources. That's one thing that I was just about to bring up. But then another is that specifics of wording and semantics can really play a part in people understanding or giving something a chance. Like, just to be clear for everybody, when he says something like the AI that's running this place, it doesn't mean that necessarily that's his specific idea of what it is. He's not saying necessarily it's a computer or something like that. Just that that's what it brings to mind. We don't know these. We use words that are familiar to you to try to get a point across. So it doesn't mean that he or I are saying we know any of these things specifically, but it is important to talk them out and to understand. And he and I specifically have found that we communicate in that way very well. Like if I say something or he says something with specific words, you have to be able to extrapolate what a person is saying without getting caught up on specific vocabulary. AI
Right.
doesn't necessarily mean AI. Yaldabaoth doesn't necessarily mean just that one version of a deity. Um,
Right.
they, these things mean a general point, and you can fill in those words with what makes sense to you as long as you get the overall point of what he is saying or what whoever you're listening to is saying. And like the thing that, as she said in the chat, like when you pointed out the three different levels that are the most apparent to you, um, it brought forth the point that there's the possibility that you, like you said in the video, you move up, potentially from each iteration of yourself, but also there's the potential that some of those beings on each level are just that, and they don't
Right.
originate from lower or from higher. Like you just said, they could be getting, like you said, the projections that would be astral, or projections that would be base level, simulation, or what
Right.
people call NPCs or whatever. There's
Mhm.
the potential for you to neglect yourself enough to dumb your consciousness or yourself down to a NPC level where you just don't care about anything anymore. You're so traumatized or beat up or tired of giving a shit that you no
Right.
longer care about those things anymore, and drop down to that bottom level. Whereas there are other beings that have always been that. They're very likely not going to ascend past that, but maybe they can. I
Right.
found it to be really interesting how you explained the three levels that have been discussed before by both of us and by others too, and specifically pleromatic beings, like beings
Right.
that um, you know, that originate from the fall. People talk about the fall all the time. It's discussed or talked about or explained in different ways, but there are many different cultures that talk about aeons or light beings that fell in consciousness potentially more than one time. And so your explanation of it, I think, was a really, really like it works really well with the concept of, if you take that fall and you happen to lose some of your memory or some of your cognitive ability, both literally and spiritually, then you may not be able to remember or figure out how to ascend back up to a specific level. And I think that that's something that leaves an opening for manipulation, you know?
Yeah, sorry, dude. I got distracted a little bit, but one of the other ideas too is like you were saying. If for the example I put, I think I put a different shape for each type of humanoid. Like NPC was triangle, sold from the astral, and physical, so-called physical, was a square, and then an oval or a circle was for all three levels, the pneumatics or whatever. But I think so. Maybe I don't know if it would be. Maybe it's kind of if you claimed people that claim materialism only, if they're either NPCs, they're only here in this place, so they don't accept any information from spiritual, even though you could find evidence in your own experience of it. But is that like an NPC, or do they not have the ability to reach up for higher intuitive information because they don't have a spark or the spirit inside? So these kind of questions are important, because if we could actually map it out more accurately and use the terminology from things like Gnosticism and stuff, we could. I don't know if you could actually really verify anybody else to be a pleromatic being or whatever, but for yourself, you would have more of a guidance system, maybe. But sorry, I keep getting distracted. But yeah, you see what
No,
I'm
it's all
saying though?
good.
Like the soul being from the astral and physical, if they don't have access to a higher whatever level it is, if the being is humanoid, doesn't have access to a so-called higher level, then it's not. It's either not. It can hear about those terms and be like that doesn't exist, or they might not ever care, or they just have no concept of it. I mean, right? You'd have to be able to access it at some point, or come from there, originate there.
I think along with that, there's the possibility of so the interference or abuse, manipulation, whatever you want to call it, from what people refer to as the demiurge, or some refer to it as Satan, some refer to it as Yahweh, Sackless. There's many different names. We talked about it many times. That, in my opinion, would be one of the reasons that those manipulations would be useful to that being or that group of beings, is that if you continue to wear on any being for a lifetime, multiple lifetimes, many moments stacked on top of each other, then depending on the strength of that of that being and their resolve, you may be able to knock them down another level to where
Yeah,
they don't care about the shit anymore. They've been through
yeah.
so much in a
That's
cyclical manner that they just say, you know what, fuck, I don't care anymore.
and that's what this place does. I mean, it's done it to me before for periods of time where it's just like you get hit big in life here, and you're like, I'm not. I don't even want to do anything anymore. Just sit there, man, and be like, this. I'm done. But then something will happen, and you're like, I can't just give up like that.
Yeah.
So I know what you mean. That would be, and another thing to talk about too. I'd like to cover the topic also of we say Yaldabaoth, or I think Saklaws is another name for it, right? But this is like the dark side version of a false god or something, a false creator being. It would be like the equivalent, like you're saying, of either an AI that projects and runs this place, balances the algorithms, keeps the equations going, projects it, or it's either an AI or something. But the idea is that god, that being the god, is not the absolute. Or
Right.
you call what is your term for it? The one,
The first.
the first, right? So I'd like to hear your opinion on that a little bit more. The
I
first,
would agree. The reason I made that distinction, because when people hear I think AI has been pushed so much as a topic recently that when people hear that term, they immediately check out. They don't want to hear about it. But I know that within that, it doesn't necessarily mean AI the way that some people think of it. The way when you say it, the way that I'm interpreting it is that there is, we tend to think of capabilities in terms of what we're capable of. But if you think of, if you think of deities and the things that they're capable of, who's to say that that one true God is not capable of creating all of this from its consciousness or its mind? Like when you say AI is projecting, that could mean the same thing as Sackless or Yaldabaoth or whoever, Yahweh is projecting all of this and making all of this possible just from its consciousness. So it's
right?
very similar in conception.
Yeah, that'd be another take that I've considered as well. Another take on the whole simulation theory, because really, when I'm saying AI, all I'm really saying is that model kind of talks about this being simulated. Which really, even the Gnostics, what do they call it? How? right? How?
Yeah.
So they had an idea of simulation theory. I don't think they had computers unless they did, and we got it erased from history or whatever, some other kind of technology. But um, even if this was being projected by an intelligence that used to be called the demiurge or whatever, the Aldebaoth, and it's some kind of dream reality, uh, it's if that's the case, then it's projecting this place and whatever other layers are there. But the question would be, why does your body stay projected here while your consciousness is tuned out or tuned inward and you're experiencing some other place, whether it's on a hallucinogen, entheogen, or you're sleeping, lucid dream, regular dream? Why would the body still wake back up instead of just leave this place? So when you think about it that way, it's like something I would think logically would have to be continuously projecting your body here while it's asleep, while you're tuned away from it, tuned somewhere else. So that's always what made me think that yes, we also project here to some degree, and you can enter in different information with your intention to some degree and tweak things, manifestation, whatever you want to say. Maybe not everything you intend, but there is overall intelligence that's predominantly projecting, from what I can tell, projecting this place and keeping it going, like a primary thing. And then the simulation model, people would call it the AI, artificial intelligence, but it's just a model. I don't know if it's an AI. It could be a dream or whatever. It could be things I haven't heard of yet.
Yeah, and I mean these are all just words, like the it's just you're essentially saying things that are familiar to the other person or to other people so that they understand the concept of what you're trying to say. So like when you say AI, and then if I interpret that to mean something not exactly the way that you say it, but still it helps me to understand the overall concept of what you're saying, like to me that is still like like you still succeeded in getting across, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
in
yeah.
the end, like you said, it's not something that we can confirm or deny, but you have to go off of personal experience and the many teachings and texts that we study and philosophical conversations that we have to try to make sense of something that is all encompassing. This is
Yeah,
not something we're going to get a definitive answer on, but you do have to use intuition to say, you know what, that doesn't really like, it's like the oneness thing, that doesn't, I don't subscribe to that. You don't subscribe to that. But there are others that's all they're about is
yeah.
this is all one thing. We're all just one thing. And I like that for them because it seems to be very beneficial. But
Right.
that's something that I look around and I look back on my experiences and even the experiences that I'm having now, and I don't see that in that way. I do think
Right.
that we all should care for each other and we should all help each other, and I think that
Yeah,
would be
definitely.
beneficial. But that doesn't mean that I am you and you are me.
Right.
Not in the sense that they mean.
Yeah, well, one of the things I don't think I clarified well enough in that video, I talked to you the other day about it after I posted the video, but the idea of oneness, and then I mentioned so-called samadhi. I'll say that I've experienced what I interpreted as a samadhi state, where I could see my own essence, what I say would be my spirit, my truest energy, reflected back to me in everyone, everything, the plants, the beings, the insects. I saw my own energy in it. It kind of felt like one, but not one, like in the way they're meaning it, right?
Yeah.
I still had my sovereignty. I wasn't just like them. It was my energy I was seeing in everything. And there
Oh,
could be multiple reasons for that.
remember when we were talking about this originally, we had the kind of thought of so using your same terminology, if this is to be as an example, a simulation, within a computer simulation, all of those things are made of pixels. No matter what you look at, they're made of pixels. So in a sense, they're all one. They're all pixels, right?
Right.
You can have a rabbit and you can have a sledgehammer, right? Those are
Right.
both pixels. So the oneness that many people describe feeling or describe makes sense to them. To me, it's the same kind of concept where, sure, everything here is made of the same stuff, essentially.
Right.
So you will
Yeah.
feel a oneness with everything because we're all made of the
Right.
same stuff. But then, as we talked about earlier, there are differences within, like, those of us who feel as though we are sovereign and can feel another place that we potentially derive from, right? And then there are other beings that don't feel that, and so this oneness that they feel with everything here, that is the all encompassing, that's all that they feel. They don't feel something else. So it makes sense for
Right.
them to say, I am one with everything here. Physically, sure. But
Right.
once you get past that physical, once you get past the pixels, what do you feel then? If you don't feel anything then, fine, sure. But you can't force other beings to conform to what you feel. Just like we're not trying to say to anyone like, no, 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 the oneness that you feel is incorrect. I'm not going to ever say that to anybody. What I'm
Right.
saying is I don't feel that in that sense. Physically, sure. We are all carbon. We all come from, stars, stardust, whatever people want to, pixels. I'll say pixels. But
Yeah.
that doesn't mean that that is the case for everyone. And I think that that was like a really cool way that we kind of came up with trying to explain the difference between that oneness and still feeling that physically, but there being something past that.
Yeah, I would break it down, and I should have You're right. I definitely should have clarified more. But what you're saying about the pixelation idea, you could interpret it as molecules or atoms, which I've never seen an atom. I've seen molecules, but um, unified field theory. There's
Right.
like an underlying field. So if you look wherever these people are that are watching this, whenever you're watching it, you got your hands, you got your head, whatever. If there's a table in front of you or a wall, or whatever, or some other being, there's air between you and them. So there's a space, but there's still molecules there. So the air that's touching your body and your eyes and that you're looking out through, the air is touching whatever you're looking at ultimately, and there's no space between them. So it's one thing. It's literally still there. There's no separation. But I don't come from this place. My body feels that connection. It's an underlying unified field theory. So, yeah, but I still think that I have a divine sovereign spirit, and I'm never going to let that go. That for me, that's an absolute truth.
Yeah, I think looking at the comment that Here Now Rad said, like, brings, so she says, yes, connection to a larger world, but we're not all the same, and maybe not even from the same place. I think some groups or types of people living in this world are nothing like me. And that I think that people are afraid of statements like that because they immediately think of divisiveness. They immediately think when you say something like that, or when we say you can have that one, good for you, but I don't feel that. I think people are
I'm on a
potentially like
right.
threatened by that, or feel as though you're saying, I don't care about you, I only care about me. But that's not what that means at all. That means that it's a refusal to take on an identity that is, like you said earlier, kind of like a Borg identity that I don't feel close to. I don't feel at home in that. It does. I've never felt that. Just like there are other things that people speak of in a very, very, this is the truth for everybody type of way that,
Right.
again, we've talked about some of these things where I don't have that experience. I'm not going to take that away from you, but I'm also not going to just cave to whoever, and say, oh, I guess that is true since so many people say it. Um,
Right.
it doesn't mean just because you can recognize that there are different types of people here, that doesn't mean malice. It doesn't imply malicious intent or tribalistic nature. It just means that you can recognize the difference between the consciousness that's within you and the identity or sovereignty that's within you, and someone else who may have a different version of it or lack some of the things that you have, or maybe even have more than what you have.
Right. Yeah, it's like just the model I put, and other people have talked about it too. I think we've mentioned it on another live stream in the past. But if there really is such thing, and if any of this is true, and there's such thing as other types of consciousness that are still humanoid, and they're NPCs or whatever you want to say, organic portal, whatever it is, if they feel pain mentally, emotionally, physically, psychically, and they can suffer, then you gotta treat them as if they're real and they can suffer. You can't just judge them absolutely. I mean, yeah, if there's some of us that have sparks from a higher realm and we're actually qualitatively different, then that makes a huge difference for them. For us, we're the ones that would be from another place. But you wouldn't just be able to treat people bad. You wouldn't want to hurt anybody, right? You'd want to do the right thing. I would think so.
Right. And I've thought about that before because, I used to play video games, right? Um, and as I grew older, and it's not because of age, just because of circumstance, I played video games less and less, and now I don't play video games really at all. If anything, I'll
Yeah.
sit and watch somebody play because that's interesting to me, but even that, not so much anymore. But one of the things that I, kind of realized was there's always this multi-level kind of purpose to many of the things that go on here. And many people talk about how video games are meant to make people angry or meant to make people or children more violent. But it also, if you think about it, it lends to the concept of looking at someone that is humanistic or resembles a person and not seeing them as a person, seeing certain people as NPCs or easy to hurt or kill or take advantage of, and then see others as being like you.
Right.
You could say that that's just a kind of side effect of video games, or you could say if this was some sort of very, very complex simulation, that would be a part of something that is meant to do something to people's psyches. For you to go out and be able to do a lot of the same things that you can do in those video games, and
Yeah.
certain people as not like you, not whatever you view yourself as, it could make it easier to look at them and say, oh, well, if I do something to them, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, yeah. You just have to use the golden rule. I mean, we both know that. Other people know it. What is it? Do not do unto others what you would not have done unto you, or do
Right.
to others what you would have done unto you. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not claiming. I never meant to claim or like put it across to anybody that I can tell by looking at someone. Oh, that's an NPC. This person has a soul. Like, I can't. Yeah, I can see their body, but I can't just see like through their body. I don't have that ability if that's a thing. But
Yeah.
I try to treat them like I would want to be treated for the most part.
It's a feeling. I know what you mean. I don't think any of us, there's definitely people that claim it. What's that dude's name? I'm not going to say his name. I forget. There's that dude that does readings for NPCs. He tells people if they're an NPC or not. I forgot his fucking name. I think his name's Tommy or something. Anyway,
That sounds dangerous. Yeah.
yeah, I don't like that. I made a whole video talking about it. I think that's really, really fucking weird to do. I still stand by that. Not trying to start shit with the dude, but at the same time, you are fucking weird for doing that.
Yeah.
You charge people to tell them if they are an NPC or not, and obviously that's going to hold some kind of negative connotation for them. If they're paying to figure out if they are or not, obviously they're not in the greatest place. So
Right.
rather than just
Taking
helping them
advantage
through
of
that and maybe showing them some text or some information that could make them feel more empowered or more intelligent, more present, you're telling them that they're a fake person and that they don't matter in existence. You suck for that, dude.
Yeah. I'm gonna
Here.
read this comment real quick. Sorry, there's kind of some background noise at the moment, so I'm getting a little distracted. But
No worries.
and there's
Yeah, I don't think that I don't think most people that have the types of discussions we do, I don't think any of us are saying, oh, I can definitely tell as soon as I look at you. It's just a feeling you get, when
right.
there's little shit that people have started calling like glitches. I don't like to call them that. Just like if a person, for instance, if a person repeats a phrase over and over 3 times in a row the exact same way, that's a strange action. That is a strange thing
Right.
to do. There are things like that, cyclical actions, cyclical declarations, things that most people don't do. Now, there are other explanations for that, but if that person doesn't have that, then there's something else potentially. So
Yeah.
hopefully no one thinks that you or I is saying like, yeah, I can tell an NPC from 1,000 yards away. Nothing. It's not anything like that. I don't even think either of us prefer that terminology. We just use it for the sake of not having to explain for another 30 minutes of what we're talking about.
Right. I'm sorry, man. I'm still gonna keep going, but it's just like there was a lot of noise there for a few minutes.
Don't trip, man. People like wind chimes.
Yeah, the wind chimes don't bother me, although that could bother some people. Somebody was saying how well, the comment was about like how it's like a religious thing because the wind chimes are in the background. I'm like, well, you know, my mom puts them everywhere, so I can't really control that. But that's off topic. But all right,
Most
so
people find it soothing, dude. Don't trip on it.
yeah, so I'd like to talk a little bit more about the. I'm sorry, you call it the first, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know what to talk about it, but I used to call it the absolute power or the one. But then the one is like it doesn't mean oneness to me. It just means logically thinking. I would guess that if you want to call this a simulation, whatever, it's still part of existence or creation, right? So whatever created or initiated the rule set for this stuff to come about, or this simulation, or everything that exists, I think logically there would have to be a source that initiated it, and then the argument is how did it get created? Did it create
So,
itself or whatever? So
so
this is what.
the distinction that I make between those two things is very Gnostic in nature. It's essentially the story of Sophia the Logos and Yaldabaoth. Yaldabaoth is, you know, what many people refer to as the one true God. Goes by many, many, many names. Sackless, the god of the blind.
Right.
Can't actually create. That's why I think it's very, very interesting that people have started to talk about simulation theory, which is another very Gnostic principle. It's a very Gnostic thought.
Right.
So the concept would be that this place, this reality, this that we've come to understand as existence or the universe, wouldn't be the sole creation of the first.
Right.
This would be the creation of Yaldabaoth, which is not even, you know, second to first.
Yeah.
In fact, the Logos, Sophia, is not even second to the first. These are all lower level, you know, aeons, lower level beings that
Right.
have the capability that are said to also be within us, the capability to create. And
Right.
depending on where you go in religious texts, you know, there's the potential to be able to return to that capability and to be able to create, you know, and this is very, very, very philosophical in nature, but to be able to create your own world or your own existence. And one of the things that people use as an example of such, we don't have very much control over, which is the dream world or the astrals that many people refer to. You're creating, you just don't have direct, many times. Some people claim to, I don't have that experience. Many people claim to be able to go astral travel and create worlds and do all types of things. If they can, that's amazing. I just don't have
Yeah.
that experience. But it is supported within text that some of us come from beings that have that capability, and that would be the fall. So
Right.
the
So
concept
we're
of who
like,
created this place would be Yaldabaoth, and the first would be who created the rest, the vastness of
right.
everything else that we are from, but essentially wouldn't be able to remember or fathom.
Right. So then, I don't know. I guess the one that would have created it all. The term I've heard was the hidden and highest Allfather. Have you heard this term?
Have.
Um. So let me ask you this real quick. Does that imply, or maybe I'm misinterpreting it, but so we could be, or real spirited beings that are in this level down. We could be the fallen angels, right, or something. We fell down into density, I guess, by that model, or is that
Yeah,
a different thing?
that's one of the interpretations. Depending on where you go in this place, you know, you can go to Eastern religions and they'll talk about the Vedas. You know, that's why I when I talk about ultra terrestrials, my main point was that we're all talking about the same beings over and over and over again, and we change and tweak little things here and there. But essentially, if you compare and contrast these things, you go from the Sumerians to the Babylonians. The Babylonians just took the writings of the Sumerians and did the exact same thing the Romans did with Christianity.
Right.
They, changed it how they wanted to and made it into what they wanted to impress upon people. So
Repackage.
right, right.
Yeah.
So it's all
Classic.
coming from the same kind of story, and it's just getting retold over and over again. And it's like a game of telephone where we just keep changing these aspects of it. But when you look at the deities, when you look at the tenets, when you look at the stories, like the story of the flood, every single civilization, every single culture has a flood story.
Yeah. Yeah, even China. I was looking at some of that. This. I don't know if you're familiar with this. I might have mentioned this before, but and I'm gonna get the details wrong. But China has a calendar that's in the 7,000s. I think 7,500, 7,500 year calendar, and there's a Hebrew calendar that's 5,500. I think. So I don't know that kind of the 7,500 year calendar because these modern archaeologists will claim that there's only 7,000 or 700 years of recorded history, but I think there's more, and we're just not allowed to know what it is.
Well, they keep changing it. They keep changing it, and it's different sources will change. Like anthropologists have changed the number of years that they believe have happened. Archaeologists have repeatedly changed the number of years that they think have happened. Historians have changed the number of years. They've updated and then taken back certain time periods. Like I talk about Charlemagne a lot. That's a very, very like easy one to point to. Him and his homies added 300 years to the calendar, 300 plus, something around there. And then also the Dark Ages. There are many that look at the Dark Ages and say, I don't know if that fucking happened, bro. Um,
Yeah, I've heard
it's
about that.
yeah, it's very, very strange the way that history works, and the way that's why it's come to a point now where when I speak about a lot of things, I mostly view it as philosophy, because you some people can look at some of these things and say, no, this definitely happened, but they don't have a real concept of if that's true or not. It's the same concept as looking up and saying space is up there. You've
Right.
never been there. You've seen pictures and you've been told about it over and over and over again. But when the reality is, you're making connections in your brain due to loosely loosely connected things. Like when they say stars, you can look up and you can see the things that are called stars, but all of the rest of that information comes from things that have been taught to you in school or by documentaries or by NASA. And you make those
Right.
connections. And so that helps to generate this, oh, well, it must be real because I can look up and I can see stars. So the rest of that stuff that they say about it must be the case. And it's not to say whether or not I believe in space or not. It's more so resigning myself and saying, I don't fucking know, man. I've never been to space. Some of that shit doesn't really seem to make a lot of sense. And then when you look at the foremost authority in space information, they themselves will say, we don't have pictures. We just give you, renderings. So it's kind of like that with history, where they say, like you said, a certain number of years have happened in recorded history, but then other cultures go back much farther than that. And it's you can carbon date things, you can make sense from anthropological math, kind of, and
Right.
it's difficult to know what is the truth.
Yeah. Another problem is that I might get the saying wrong, but to the victor go the spoil, right? So,
Right.
and the as these after reset and culture after culture dying out and civilizations dying, which I'm assuming has actually happened, a lot of cycles for maybe thousands of years. But whoever won or survived in whatever cataclysm could just rewrite history to their own whim. So really, I guess a few hundred years ago, like the beginning of the U.S. is supposed to be 1776, and I don't even. I mean, yeah, they say that's when it is, but I don't really buy it, man. I don't. I don't. I just
Yeah.
don't believe the information they give us. The founding fathers. There's so many problems with it that I'm not even going to go into it. It's just there's no reason to just believe or accept any of the history or anything really. I mean, stars, you can look at them with telescopes. The stars, they look nothing like what they show in CGI pictures. They don't. They're little blinking, morphing things. They don't even look like the a sphere of whatever. They don't look like it.
Yeah,
So how are they?
they look like plasma, like water.
Right. And that's
Um,
just one example. It's all it doesn't fit. None of it really meshes with what they say when you
Even
look
just
into it.
on a historical level, there's the Babylonians. Babylonians were the victors over, victors over the Sumerians, so they got to change things. There's dynastic Egypt, where you don't. If you say Kemet, people don't know what you're talking about, but it's the same place.
Right.
Many of those pyramids were pre-existing, and people moved in and then tried to like patch them back up and fix them back up. They don't know what they're for. They don't know how long they've been there. They, to this day, there are gatekeepers that keep people from exploring said pyramids and say,
Right.
I'm going to go down there and check it out. Okay, I went. There's nothing down there. When other times that they've done that, you've found vast networks of tunnels and caves and
Right.
machine works and all kinds of shit. Then there's also the Roman Catholics. They look at Christianity, dude. People don't, when you say things that Christianity came from, people will say you are a blasphemer.
Yeah.
Just from a non-religious, like, hey,
Yeah.
this is within text. It's
Yeah.
not. I'm
Well,
not
I
trying
mean,
to shit on Christianity. Just like this is within Christian text that's been like removed and recovered. They're like, but that's
right.
blasphemy, though.
Yeah, that includes the Nag Hammadi library, the Gnostic Bible. That if you tell any kind of modern, I guess, canonical Bible scholar, I don't know about the scholars, they might accept it, but a normal person and tell them, yeah, look, this Nag Hammadi Bible over here that they found in 1945, it has 43 other books from the original Bible that the Catholic Church removed, and they're gonna look at you and be like, that's satanic or whatever they would say, and it's like you're just ignoring all the other information. I mean, it talks the Nag Hammadi is crazy. It talks about all kinds of stuff, and without the necessary information, you're never going to get to the real truth. I'm not saying that there's even really an ability to get to the absolute truth of this place left, because probably the Vatican has most of the information. But from what we could find, it's all scattered now. The books have been removed and they're all hidden and stuff. I don't think we have a full scope. I don't think I have a full scope. Pretty good idea of what this place is, but um, I think the Vatican would probably have a lot of it hidden. Still, I still think so.
Well, they're said to have miles of library, below
Right.
the Vatican. So, and I mean, it's one of those things where it's kind of such a well known. I hate the word conspiracy, but it's such a well known conspiracy that it's almost like a joke at this point. There's shows. There's a Spanish show that I like a lot on HBO Max. I can't remember the name of it. Oh, 30 Coins. 30
Okay.
Coins. Really, really cool show. I mean, they talk about specific conspiracies about the Vatican and the cloth that if you just watch the show and don't know anything about it, you think that the writer's a genius. But most of what they put in that show are things that people talk about. They talk about it. Another one's called Evil. Specifically, they talk about the Vatican basically having their own version of the CIA, and I think they call them Friends of the Vatican or something like that. That's
I
not
don't doubt
bullshit.
that. I
That's
don't
that's
doubt that
real.
at all. Yeah,
Yeah,
that
that's
I'll
real
believe.
shit.
It's like that makes sense. I'll buy that story.
Yeah, yeah. So I
Yeah,
mean,
sorry about the noise there for a few minutes. They got back with groceries, and I was trying to just listen, but the distraction. It's all right. Next time I'll
it's
try
all
to
good,
pick
man.
a better time, I guess. But um,
It's all good.
yeah,
I don't think it's coming through as much as it might seem on your end. So it's all good.
for sure. But so let me ask you this. I know we talked about a few minutes, maybe 10 minutes ago. We talked about the Gnostic mythology with aeons. You know, I think if I remember right, was it 18 syzygies, the pairs of two, male female. There's 18 of them below the All Father, right? And the
Right.
lowest one, the female was Sophia, which is wisdom, and then
Right.
the male is that Christ? Is the male Christ?
If I'm not mistaken, I believe so. Even that, you know, when you look at other texts and other cultures, the same, for one, there's the same concept in many of them of the twins.
Right.
That's all over the place. That we all used to come in pairs every single time. Every birth were two, male and female.
Even
That's
for
not
humans,
with that.
like for humans.
Yes,
Or okay, all right. I don't think I've heard that yet.
and
I gotta
beyond.
listen to that.
And
All right.
beyond, not just humans, but that's something that is almost viewed as like a kind of holdover in the way that beings, consciousnesses are birthed or come into existence. Pairs,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
one of the reasons that Yaldabaoth came out the way that Yaldabaoth came out was that Sophia created Yaldabaoth without
Male.
without his pair,
Right. Right.
without the female. So, and it's said that Yaldabaoth was hideous and all these
Yeah.
qualifiers and shit. So like that is something that and then you can even get into the demiurge and how each entity of the demiurge has a specific quality, hair, teeth, all of these skin, all of these, they're made of specific shit. It's just like the Bible in the sense that you can take it literally, or you can get the alchemic, kind of understanding of it, or there's usually at least three interpretations at the same time within these texts. So like even with the concept of being born in pairs, that could be just you, and there being two versions of you, the masculine and the feminine. And
Right.
even the All Father, the concept of the All Father, some people believe to have been a flip, where there's actually an All Mother, and
Right.
because of patriarchal changes throughout history, the All Mother was changed into the All Father.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've thought about that idea of the source or the All Father being I guess you would say female, just because another kind of thing is like before existence. I guess there would have been a void, which would be like a emptiness, a zero, an emptiness. So that to me that would be represent like the female aspect, and then from the emptiness something emerged. That would be the male. So you have the emptiness as female, and then the emergence as male, female, male, and I guess that would be the beginning of all of it, right? In that idea.
And another way that's essentially the same kind of way I looked at it, but the way that I kind of made sense of it in my head was just to look at how things are now. Do males birth? Do males give birth to life? Who gives birth to life? And then when you go farther back, I forgot what it's called. It's actually got a term, but there's the capability that women used to have in certain texts to give birth without sexual intercourse with a male.
Oh yeah, what's that called? That's immaculate conception, right? Well, that's the religious version of it, but
Right.
there's an idea. I think some species of animals, the males actually might actually give birth, but they're not human, obviously.
Right. That's what I
But
mean.
that's I think so.
Seahorses give birth, male seahorses. But as far as human beings go, when you look at us, many things that we do and are capable of, both physical and personality wise, all of those things, you can draw them back throughout the record and see where they came from, where they changed, when they were subverted. Like a lot of Babylonian shit subverted things from the Sumerian version, because the Sumerians were very peaceful. Their texts was just them like documenting how to farm and shit. They weren't. The Babylonians took that shit and were like fire and brimstone, basically. So
Right.
like, there's lots of examples of the record showing one thing and then someone getting a hold of that record, kind of like the Book of Eli. You know that that character wanted to get a copy of the last copy of the Bible so that he could not only have it to manipulate people, but he could add and take things out to make the new world his world.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
like, that
Makes
shit's
me
crazy.
think of, have you the movie The Book of Eli? It showed that guy. He
Carnegie.
but in the movie The Book of Eli, I think that's what it was called. Same thing you're talking about. The book was a braille, like for a blind person. And
Yep.
when he did get the book from Eli or whatever the guy's name was, but when he couldn't read it, and I'm like, oh, so he was just gonna recreate dominance culture and be the ruler of the land in like the apocalyptic age. Weird movie, um, but I had a question for you too, kind of off topic. But have you heard of the Septuagint, the first Bible from like 2,000 years ago? So
Yeah.
I never understood that because it's obvious to me that religion's been around since we had agriculture, probably. You know, whatever. If you want to buy the storyline that 10,000 years ago we developed agriculture and left hunter gatherer type lifestyles, then they needed to control the masses, so they created religion. But all I'm saying is, I don't think the Septuagint was really the first Bible. That I don't buy that, man. It's probably been around a lot longer than 2,000 years. They'll say it only has been since the Septuagint, though, right? That's what they say that.
It's those that subscribe to that specific belief system, because again, most of the stories that are within these texts come from a previous text. They just don't. It's a lot like when you look at religious scholars now, they've started to kind of change this because things are more public now. But before the internet, if you came to them with something that you could not only display but that you could prove, you could show them the proof of this, they would still say, well, we don't acknowledge that. We don't accept that. Didn't matter if
Yeah,
you had an original copy of a text or, you know, cuneiform tablets that are confirmed to have been from a specific dig or something like that. They would still
right.
say, we don't acknowledge that. That's not a part of real history. And so, you know, the Septuagint, it's just like any other text where I'm sure that there's useful, you know, there's useful like stories, and there are things that you can use to confirm other stuff, like the connections between all of these different cultures. But like for them to claim, it's just like them saying what the beginning of time is. Like recorded history, a lot of people now in the past, like, you know, I'd say 50 years or so, are starting to understand that it's very, very narcissistic and immature for us to think that we are the first civilization to ever exist on this plane. It makes zero sense to believe that at all, you know?
Well, yeah, that I definitely don't buy that. I mean, there's evidence. They're still digging up evidence. They find it all the time of past civilizations that had actually not. I mean, I don't think they found necessarily like computer, like, you know,
They claim
silicon
to.
based technology, but there's gears, like gear systems, and not just pyramids. There's other things too, but there's gears and there's all kinds of things they find, and some of them are like off the coast under the water. There's pyramids there, like on by Florida, Cuba, down there, all around underneath the water where it does appear it got flooded. So that's, I mean, that's interesting. But big cities like wide of concrete that are shaped like stuff under the water.
Yeah,
I'm sure you've heard of this, right? So that's
yeah.
not new. And they keep finding more stuff. So I guess what I've heard is the whatever the cataclysm is, it's supposed to be every 12 or 13,000 years. By the time the civilization builds up to some advanced technology like what we have, then it gets wiped out mostly, and there's only a little bit of information left over until it builds up again the next time.
Yeah, and I mean when you have there's evidence of nuclear like um situations. There are places where the sand is glass.
Yep.
Which would, in order to heat sand to that degree, or to heat the materials on those beaches to that degree, it would have to be instantaneously a certain very, very high temperature, which indicates nuclear radiation, nuclear Armageddon from a sense. And so you could either say that there was some kind of natural event that I'm sure would be capable of doing something such as that, or you would have to say, oh, well, then that just means that there were civilizations before and they fucking bombed themselves to shit. And there were a few people that existed with no means of being able to pass along that history, or maybe they didn't want to pass along that history because they wanted to avoid that level of conflict infecting the next civilization to come along after.
Well, they didn't do a good job. It's starting to happen here. one thing I'll say too is whenever I think about this idea of past nuclear wars or whatever, with the evidence you're talking about, like in the deserts and stuff, it makes me immediately jump to this thing. I'm pretty sure this is a fact. There are a handful of trees in this realm that are thousands of years old, several thousand, up to 4,000 or 5,000 or 6,000 years old. But what I understand is that there are no forests anywhere to be found that are older than 250 or 300 years. Anywhere in the whole realm.
Which, like...
So how is that possible? And where did the big mother trees go? I think there was mother trees, man. It's pretty obvious.
Well, yeah, I mean, many people, and people tend to make fun of you if you say this, but when you look at specific structures that are on this plane, like specific plateaus and mountains and things of that nature, mountains, they resemble petrified wood. They resemble very, very, very gigantic trees. Some of them look like stumps when you look at them from a zoomed out view from above. They look like the exact same thing as a large tree that's been buzz cut. Yep. And you can see the rings, you can see the petrified nature of the outside of the facade of the mountain or of the plateau or whatever it is.
I know people think it's like unbelievable, or they'll say you're like delusional if you think that, but you can look at those pictures of some of those objects, the mesas or whatever. They have cells, hexagonal cells that are from the bottom to the top. It's obviously that it was some kind of root system. I don't know, man. They just you can bring this stuff up to the whatever geologist or whatever, and they'll just deny it. And I'm not a scientist, so I don't know, but I can make up my own mind, right? So
yeah. Well, academia is notoriously like they're notoriously bureaucratic. You can it's the same thing as with religious scholars. Like, you can bring them something that is not only like theory, but you've proven your theory 3 times over, and they'll just look at it and say, well, that doesn't go along with the current standard, so we're not going to acknowledge that. We're not going to publish you. We're not going to acknowledge that. You can try to publish independently, but we're going to bury you if you do that. We'll take away your tenure. We'll take away your your doctorate. We'll do whatever possible to keep you from bringing forward this fringe theory, unless it's a fringe theory that we want brought forward, like Carlson. What's his name?
Carl Sagan?
No, Randall Carlson.
Oh, yeah. I don't know. I think I've heard of him. Is it a UFO guy?
Kind of, not really. He's the history guy. I think that's his name. He's got something on Netflix. He's done some stuff on the History Channel and shit like that. But he has alternative history ideas, but they're just enough to like keep the overall academics happy. There are many that don't like him, but then there are others that are like, yeah, you're on the right path, but you're saying shit that doesn't make any sense. Like Archaic's dude called him out for saying that dumb shit about the Shars. He's he's shown his work on what the Shars are, and it makes a lot more sense, and he's got documentation for it. Whereas Randall Carlson, just kind of like goes along with what everyone else has said shars are for the past, however many hundreds of years. So it's
Yeah, the
weird.
fact that they retard the progress like that deliberately, I'm guessing that's kept happening for each civilization as well. There's probably societies, secret societies that survive because they're underground. They know it's coming, whatever it is. They go to the next civilization and then do it maybe slightly differently with another attempt with more knowledge from how they failed the last time at controlling everything. And then it gets more boxed down and it's another go at until the next cataclysm. That's kind of
Well, supposedly that's what the Anuna are.
right.
Supposedly, because that's within text, and it's even with text, it's really difficult because it's at this point I'm just like anyone can write anything,
Right.
I'm not even 50 years old, so
Right.
for me to say that I know something for sure because of text, I don't do that anymore because you can see people kind of like manipulating shit for their own means, but repetitive corroboration is helpful. And some people say Anuna, some people say Anunnaki, but when you say Anunnaki, you start to get into all that alien blue people shit. And
Yeah.
it's like legend. Some of that comes from real shit, but it's been so diluted by like ancient aliens and Gaia, the Gaia network and shit like that. It's become a caricature of itself. But there are texts that talk about the Anuna, long-haired, very pale, blue-eyed, black-haired beings that at the time were the only beings that could grow facial hair, that could grow body hair in general outside of their heads. To like,
Yeah.
they're supposedly they were advanced and they built underground structures that were capable of protecting them from certain types of events, and then they would come back up and give history that they chose and technology that they chose to the beings that survived certain catastrophic events. But I think there's probably others too. There's the Darren Kuyu shit and all those. There's lots of, we don't know shit about underground. So, I mean, there's probably lots of historical record outside of the Vatican, even in underground protected areas that none of us even have a clue about.
Right. So I just realized here. I think I'd like to end it now. Is that cool, man?
Yeah.
But I just realized the next time we do this, like, I'd like to do another live again in a few weeks or whatever. But there's only 3 people watching, so I guess the people on my channel, they didn't, for some reason, they couldn't see it was live over here. So
Yeah.
I don't want to just do it only on my channel either. I'd like to have both of our subscribers be able to join, but I'm not sure if that's what the live together thing is because I didn't do that feature, but I don't know. Well, maybe.
You gotta look for it because I saw it on mine, and I think that it's probably on yours too. It might just be in a different spot. So we'll. I think we both kind of, our time got away from me. I'll say that because you sent me a message kind of earlier on, and I didn't see it. But yeah, man,
Sure.
we'll just go back and forth. We'll switch back and forth, and you should be able to access the video and put it on your channel too. And if not, I'll just download it and I'll send it to you.
For sure. Yeah, I don't think the background noise on the video will be that bad, but
No, it's not.
that was good. That's a good one, man. Cool.
Yeah.
I appreciate the talk.
Yeah, definitely,
So,
man. Good talking to you.
yeah, we'll do it again in a couple weeks, man.
All right, brother.
Take care.
Peace. All right, guys. That was a good conversation. I hope you enjoyed it. If you want to donate to the channel, it's in the description somewhere, maybe also in the description of the channel itself. That was Infinite Corridors 108. His channel is in the community section. I talk about him a lot. We already have other episodes together, other videos together. And I'm still working on some other videos. I've got personal shit going on. The documentation video is all but done. I just have to be careful in when I upload it. So that'll be coming. I'll keep you updated on it. It is fucked up, very intense. It has to do with candida, and it has to do with a emerging illness being more and more recognized by the medical big medical or whatever you want to call it. Morgellons. I'm sure that they'll end up changing the name as that emerges. Very, very recent stuff, but I'll keep you updated on when I'm going to bring that video out. I hope you got something from this conversation. I definitely did. Go watch his video. Go watch Infinite's video. It's got non-duality and oneness in the title. I'm not sure of the title specifically, but it's one of the most recent ones. I appreciate you checking out the video. I hope you have a good day. Bye.